It is 1974, 2 in the morning, and the house has gone dark. Your parents' bedroom door is closed, the kitchen is yours. You ease the pantry open, reach for the Kellogg's Sugar Smacks box, tip it straight back, and let 24 puffed wheat kernels cascade onto your tongue. 56% sugar by weight, more sweet than food. The crunch is barely a sound. Your mom has no idea. Number 12 on this list was more than half sugar by weight, and Kellogg's marketed it to your parents as a nutritious breakfast. And number 3 moved $100 million in its very first year, then quietly disappeared from every freezer in America. If you remember any of these, hit subscribe and stay close, because nobody is going to believe what some of these companies got away with. This is the countdown of 15 midnight snacks from the 1970s that your mom never knew about. Let's go. Number 15. The powder hit the glass with a soft hiss, and then you stirred, or you didn't. Your spoon moved maybe twice before you drank the orange crystals straight from the canister lid, a half-dissolved sludge that tasted like orange, the way a photograph tastes like dinner. Tang was introduced by General Foods in 1957 and rocket-launched into American homes when NASA tied it to the early space missions. John Glenn sipped it in orbit, and every kid in America needed to follow. By the early 1970s, it was the drink of every latchkey kitchen, every midnight glass. Your dad thought he was giving you vitamins. What nobody mentioned was that Buzz Aldrin, who actually walked on the moon, would later say the quiet part out loud about the drink. U.S. sales collapsed in the 2000s. The brand shifted its marketing attention to Latin America in 2008. Tang still exists somewhere. The kitchen it belongs to is no longer yours. Number 14. Goofy Grape, Rootin' Tootin' Raspberry, Freckle-Faced Strawberry. Pillsbury introduced funny-face drink mixes in 1964 and gave every flavor its own cartoon face because Kool-Aid had the market, and Pillsbury needed a reason to exist on the same shelf. The flavor packets sold for almost nothing. Your mom bought them in handfuls, you mixed them in a pitcher, and drank something that tasted designed specifically for your pleasure. What killed Funny Face was a federal ban. The original formula used cyclamates, an artificial sweetener the FDA outlawed in 1969. Pillsbury switched to saccharin, and every kid noticed. The taste changed. Sales fell. They switched to an add sugar model, halving the packet price. But the old feeling never came back. Pillsbury sold the brand in 1980. It vanished shortly after. Number 13. They were wheel-shaped, roughly dime-sized, crunchy in a way that left orange-red powder on your fingers. General Mills put pizza spins on shelves in the late 1960s in a green, white, and red box meant to evoke the Italian flag because pizza was Italian. They tasted like pizza the way a photograph of pizza tastes like pizza. But at midnight, they were exactly what you wanted. Something with crunch and flavor that disappeared silently from a bowl. Your kitchen went through a lot of these during the Nixon administration. General Mills discontinued pizza spins in 1975. No dramatic story. The company moved on, and the pizza-flavored snack category eventually went to products that weren't wheel-shaped. These little corn wheels were a genuine fixture, and then they weren't. Number 12. You didn't even need a bowl. The box was the bowl. You pressed your face close to the opening, tipped it forward, and let the puffed wheat pour directly onto your tongue at 2 in the morning. Kellogg's Sugar Smacks was 56% sugar by weight, which means every piece was more sugar than wheat. Your mom bought it because Kellogg's called it a nutritious breakfast. Leo Burnett's agency created Dig-'em Frog for the brand in the early 1970s, a cartoon amphibian in a bucket hat who made the cereal feel like a club. The name change came around 1981. Kellogg's renamed it Honey Smacks to draw attention toward the honey and away from the sugar. The sugar content stayed essentially the same. What changed was what they were allowed to call it. Number 11. You held the pan at the edge of the stove and moved it in slow circles. The foil dome started flat, then breathed. Then it grew, pressing upward until the whole pan was a balloon of popcorn you had made yourself at 10:30 while your parents thought you were asleep. Jiffy Pop was invented in 1958 by Frederick C. Menon in LaPorte, Indiana, with the slogan, "As much fun to make as it is to eat." Stage magician Harry Blackstone Jr. advertised it in the 1970s as the magic treat, and the description was honest. The foil expanding was the closest thing your kitchen had to a special effect. Microwave popcorn arrived in the 1980s and took the ritual completely. Jiffy Pop still technically exists, but nobody makes slow circles at the stove at midnight anymore. Number 10. The box was solid black with no picture and no explanation of the product inside. Instead, it was covered in sentences that read like jokes from a comedian you had never heard of, who was somehow funnier than every comedian you had. Alan Katz wrote the copy for Screaming Yellow Zonkers, and Alan Katz also wrote for the Mary Tyler Moore Show and MASH, which explains why the box outperformed most television. Lincoln Snacks introduced the product on August 15th, 1969. A sugar-glazed, nut-free, kosher popcorn dyed a deep yellow that left your fingers looking like evidence. You ate these from the box at whatever hour nobody approved of. When Conagra acquired Lincoln Foods in 2007, they were discontinued. A brief Walgreens-only revival in 2012 came and went. The name is still owned. Nothing is being done with it. Here is what the companies never put in the commercials. The 1970s were the decade the federal government decided your midnight snack was its business. The FDA had banned cyclamates in 1969, wiping out original formulas overnight. Sugar came under fire from nutrition advocates throughout the decade. By 1978, the Federal Trade Commission had drafted a proposal that would have banned all television advertising of sugary foods to children under 8. The food industry called it an attack on the economy. The Washington Post called the FTC the national nanny. The lobbying response was swift and enormous. By 1980, Congress had stripped the FTC of most of its authority to regulate children's advertising. The food companies won. But they had already spent the late 1970s reformulating, renaming, and quietly discontinuing products that couldn't survive the scrutiny. Some snacks on this countdown were killed by science, some by a name change, some by the math of a market that was no longer allowed to advertise what made them sell. Number 9. The commercial told you the correct way to open it. Slowly now. Keep your finger in the ring. Don't play with it, lick it, or keep it in your hand. The metal lid on a Hunt's Snack Pack pudding came off in a ring pull, thin as foil, with an edge like a blade. Your mom warned you every time. You licked the lid every time. Hunt Wesson introduced the single-serve aluminum cans in 1968, chocolate and butterscotch pudding under a pull tab designed for a child's lunch or a child's pantry raid. The company developed a safer lid by 1970. The metal era still lasted until 1984 when they switched to plastic. The tongue cut was the price of entry, and somehow that made it better. Number 8. The wrapper said, "Instant breakfast you can get your teeth into," and the chocolate-covered outside was smooth the way a candy bar is smooth. But the inside was granola and oats and something dense and chalky that your teeth had to work through. Carnation released the breakfast bar in 1975, the same year a Big Mac cost less than $1, and marketed it as a complete meal in your hand. Your mom approved, which was the trick. It was snack cake sweet, but labeled nutrition, so it lived in the open cabinet, and you could grab it at midnight without guilt. Nestle acquired Carnation in the mid-1980s, and the bars slowly disappeared from the portfolio. They were gone in the early 90s, briefly relaunched in 94, and discontinued for good in 97. A 2014 replacement did not taste the same. Number 7. The wrapper had a ruler printed down the side because the bar was long and Mars wanted you to know it. 8 inches of braided caramel covered in milk chocolate, wide and flat and chewy in a way that required a commitment. The tagline was, "The candy bar you cannot eat quickly," which was both a promise and a warning. Mars introduced the Marathon bar in 1973 at 15 cents, with a cowboy named Marathon John, played by Patrick Wayne, settling disputes in the television commercials. The bar was so long it would not fit on standard candy shelves and usually needed its own standalone display. By 1981, Mars decided it was not meeting revenue expectations and pulled it. The caramel braid has never come back in the same form. Gone. Number 6. It came in a small foil packet and you tipped it onto your tongue and your mouth became weather. Crackling and popping without warning, a powder that had been designed to feel unusual long before anyone decided it resembled something illegal. General Foods released Space Dust in 1978. It was Pop Rocks crushed to a fine powder, with flavors named Galactic Grape, Cosmic Cherry, and Orbiting Orange. Stores couldn't keep it in stock. Street vendors in New York reportedly marked up the packets. Then the calls started. Parents complained that Space Dust sounded too close to Angel Dust, the street name for PCP. General Foods renamed it Cosmic Candy. The controversy did not cool. The same urban legend damaging Pop Rocks attached itself to the renamed product. Discontinued in the early 1980s, never revived. They changed the name. The name was not the problem. By 1977, Saturday morning television was a 4-hour commercial arranged around cartoons. Snack brands had turned the morning schedule into a direct-to-child sales channel, spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And the products on this list were the result of that investment. They existed because a 30-second spot could move a generation of kids to ask and ask again until something landed in the cart. When the FTC proposed in 1978 to ban advertising of sugary products to children under 8, the industry treated it as existential. The lobbying campaign that followed stripped the FTC of its power by 1980. The companies kept their advertising rights, but the pressure had already changed them. Products were renamed, reformulated, and quietly discontinued. The next 4 items on this countdown were products of that machine at its peak, and they show it. Number 5. You made it in a clear glass so you could watch. 1 packet of powder, boiling water, ice water, and the blender, then the refrigerator. What came out in the middle of the night, if you were patient, was 3 distinct layers, clear jelly at the bottom, creamy mousse in the middle, and something airy and light at the top. Kraft introduced Jell-O 1, 2, 3 in 1969 as gelatin with 2 toppings, and the trick worked in a clear glass every time. It came in strawberry, cherry, lime, orange, and raspberry. Your mom made it when she wanted to look like she knew what she was doing at the stove and she had not touched the stove. Sales declined through the mid-1980s as Jell-O's overall market weakened. It was reintroduced in 1989 and officially discontinued in January 1996. 1 packet, 3 layers, then nothing. Number 4. The box said 59 cents, and it said the energy food developed by Pillsbury in support of the U.S. aerospace program, and it said about 44 calories. And none of that mattered because it was shaped like a stick and it was chocolate flavored, and you ate it at midnight while your parents slept and felt for 4 minutes like an astronaut. NASA contracted with Pillsbury for a high-energy snack that would fit through the small, airtight opening in an astronaut's helmet. A team led by Howard Bauman developed the bar. In 1970, a box of 14 sticks sold for 59 cents in chocolate, peanut butter, and caramel. In 1972, astronauts on Skylab 3 ate a modified version to test what Pillsbury called gastrointestinal compatibility. Pillsbury dropped space from the name in 1971. Food sticks went nowhere. Discontinued in the mid-1980s. You were basically an astronaut, briefly. Number 3. Kraft test marketed them in 1978 and rolled them out nationally the following year. And in its first full year of national sales, Jell-O Pudding Pops moved $100 million worth of boxes, the figure that opened this countdown, a number that tripled within 5 years. Chocolate, vanilla, butterscotch, banana. Frozen pudding on a stick, cold and dense in a way that separated it from every other frozen bar you had eaten. You pulled them from the kitchen freezer at 11 at night, stripped the wrapper in one slow piece, and bit down on something different. Your mom bought them because Jell-O was a respectable name, and you ate them at hours that were not respectable. The product was discontinued in 2004. The reason given was the high cost of manufacturing and storing frozen pudding, an explanation so mundane for a product that was successful that it still does not land correctly. Number 2, the jar was 69 cents, and the label was covered in cartoon eyes, and the jingle went pea nutty Koogle with the googly eyes, and you ate the chocolate flavor directly off the lid with your index finger at 1 in the morning, because a spoon would have made noise. Kraft introduced Koogle in the early 1970s in 4 flavors: chocolate, vanilla, banana, and cinnamon. The mascot was called the Koogle Nut, a creature made entirely of googly eyes, with the slogan, "Here's looking at you, kid." What Kraft did not print on the front of the jar was that Koogle contained only 60% peanuts, well below the 90% the FDA required to use the word peanut butter. Consumer Reports noticed, health advocates noticed. By around 1978, it was off the shelves. Kraft confirmed in writing that they do not bring back discontinued products. The Koogle fan community, in forum posts going back decades, has not accepted this. Number 1, you heard it on the playground first. Mikey from the Life cereal commercial, the kid who would eat anything, had eaten Pop Rocks and washed them down with a Coke, and his stomach had exploded. You knew it probably was not true. You also knew it might be true. That tension was part of the reason you poured a packet onto your tongue at midnight and waited. What happened was a crackling carbon dioxide releasing inside your mouth in tiny pops, something alive happening inside your own face. General Foods introduced Pop Rocks in the United States in 1976. Developed by William A. Mitchell, the same food scientist who had invented Tang. The candy moved 500 million packets in an 18-month window. Then the rumor spread. General Foods ran full-page ads in 45 major publications in 1979. They sent Mitchell on tour to explain the chemistry. The FDA set up a phone hotline for worried parents. In the fourth quarter of 1979, General Foods reported a 24% drop in profits. Production was discontinued in 1980. The candy came back in 1986 and is still around today. But the original run lasted 4 years. From the school playground to the kitchen floor at midnight, this was the snack your decade was most afraid of and most unable to stop eating. Pop Rocks, number 1, every time. The thing about Koogle is that the 69-cent jar fit in the back of the refrigerator behind the leftovers, invisible to adults and visible to you. You knew where it was the way you knew all the secret locations in the house. Which cabinet door squeaked, which floorboards were safe at midnight, where the spoons were in relation to the light switch. You ate Koogle in the dark with your fingers and put the jar back exactly where you found it and went to bed. And in the morning, it was like none of it had happened. The 1970s were the decade. American food companies decided children were a market of their own, and the snacks on this countdown were the products of that idea. Sugar-glazed popcorn in a comedy box, puffed wheat that was more sugar than grain, a peanut spread with cartoon eyes, a powdered candy that crackled like something forbidden. These weren't just snacks. They were a category of private experience, things that lived in the gap between what your parents approved of and what actually happened after the lights went out. Tell me in the comments which one you remember sneaking. And if you can tell me what it tasted like, I'll know you were actually there.